For my media task, I had to create a short film opening of any genre. Through my research, I decided that horror would be an interesting genre to choose, as it was not only challenging, but there were many different styles and conventions used to create a successful horror product. I decided to look at 2 horror products, Scream 4, which was based on a psychotic serial killer called Ghostface, and Pray First Kill, which was a Norwegian product renowned for its intense atmosphere and jump scenes. I decided to take different aspects from both traditional media products in order to create my own product. Unlike most traditional horror scenes, Scary Movie 4 was shot in a well-lit modern house as opposed to either a dark, run-down motel or abandoned house. I decided to follow this convention but change it in order to gain a greater effect. Pray First Kill is shot in a rundown motel but used a dark and sinister filter over the top to create an eerie and ominous effect that would keep the viewers on edge. I decided to use a similar steel blue filter over the top of my well-lit scenery, which created the gloomy atmosphere I was looking for. As Scream 4 didn't rely on lighting to entice the audience, it had to use sound to keep the users on edge by using quiet and creepy backing music, build-up music using mainly high-string violins, as are in most typical horror movies, and also jump scares, which are renowned all around the world within the horror genre. I had asked my friend Dale if he would be able to create me some horror sample clips in order to entice the audience with backing music, keep them on edge during the build-up, and finally make them gasp using jump scares. Each aspect of the sound was used in my product to create an effective horror product. Also, in Scream 4, the 2 female characters in the beginning of the clip had very little meaning to the overall plot of the story. They were just used to introduce the audience to the overall style and scenario of the film, thus giving no real character development. I decided to do the same, as I had a beautiful teenage girl who dies within the first 2 to 5 minutes of the film without any character development, like in most traditional horror films. As a small independent film company, I decided to research in order to establish the distribution companies that would be best to distribute my film. Maxim Media would probably distribute my film, as my horror film is very traditional and follows the traditional horror conventions, which Maxim's Media have a lot of experience in, which is shown in their successful products Beasts and Demons. The social group that I represent in my product was teenagers from the ages of 15 to 19, as this is usually the age that has been represented in horror movies such as Scream 4 and Pray First Kill. In order to represent my character's class, I had her dressed in the stereotypical teenager's wardrobe for girls around this age, a hooded jumper and jogger bottoms. Furthermore, I had the character talking on the phone using informal language to distinguish her class. Instead of using proper vocabulary such as yes, I used more slang type words such as yeah, so that my target audience can relate to the character. Also, the white t-shirt that the character was wearing represents innocence and purity, as opposed to the spirit, who is wearing all black, which represents sin and despair. I used a lot of close-up shots during the film in order for the audience to connect more with the character and sympathise with her. During the end of the film, I decided to use more long shots so that the audience were distanced from the character, as the effect was that the character was helpless. During the research stage of my product, I asked teenagers from the ages of 16 to 19 what their favourite genre was and why. The vast majority of users said that they prefer horror movies, as it made them jump and had a huge impact on their emotions. Later I asked them what they would expect to see in a typical horror movie, and the most common answer that came up was the stereotypical jump, which sets horror apart from any other genre. Another answer that really interests me was, I'm less traditional with horror movies, as I prefer to have special effects as opposed to horror with no CGI. This became my obsession, as not only do modern films use a lot of CGI, but it sounded challenging. In order to create CGI effects, I created my own using Maya, a software that specializes in CGI design. Once I created the smoke, I simply used a green screen in the background, imported the file into Adobe After Effects, and then removed the green screen using an effect called Keylight on Premiere Pro. This was an effective way of creating supernatural apparitions and effects. In order to create the jumpy scenes, I simply had Lucy, my female character, and had her stand in the mirror, and had Starina, my spirit character, stand behind her. Once Lucy bent down, Star was behind, and then suddenly the music created an effective jumpy scene. I also had Star run past the camera and added a loud banshee-like screaming sound in order to make yet another jump scene. I've learnt a lot of many different things about the softwares and technology whilst creating my product. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit most of my video and audio footage. I use the cut tool to chop up footage and audio clips in order to place them in the correct sequence. I also used the warp stabilizer tool for one of my handheld footage clips, as it shook about a lot, which would disrupt the continuity of my product. I have also used the audio gain tool in order to adjust the dynamics of my audio clips to suit the scene. I would increase the dynamics of the audio clip by 10 decibels for jump scares in order to frighten the audience. Whilst recording the horror film, I used the EOS Canon 60D with an 18 to 55mm lens, which had great features such as allowing me to create clean and aesthetically pleasing frames. I shot with the ISO at 1000, which made the shadows and lighting in the clip stand out before I applied the filter. In order to create a dark and mysterious atmosphere, I used RGB curves to change the colour of the video footage, greatly affecting my overall product. I have learnt a lot since the preliminary task, and I feel that I am more knowledgeable now than when I started. I have learnt a lot about avoiding reflective surfaces so that the audience cannot see the cameraman in the reflection, thus breaking continuity. I have also learnt that the higher the ISO is set on the camera, the lower quality the image, as it increases the noise. One of the major things that I have learned is that music is one of the most important aspects in all styles of films. It can be used to create an effective chase scene or even romantic scene and increase the overall effectiveness and quality of the product.